What's going on, lads and lasses? Welcome back to 100% Mag. So we return to Premier League action for the brand new 24-25 campaign as Newcastle United take on Southampton at St James's Park. Newly promoted Southampton back to the Premier League after coming through the Championship playoffs. And of course, their hero last season, Adam Armstrong, former Newcastle United player, and Geordie, of course. In Southampton, love a Geordie, of course, in the past. Alan Shearer being a player at Southampton and a star player for them back in the day. And of course, this is pretty much the Alan Shearer derby as Newcastle United take on Southampton to kick off the Premier League campaign at St James's Park for the 24-25 season. Last season, of course, we missed out on European football due to Man United winning the FA Cup. But Eddie Howe is fully focused on Champions League qualification this season. He's fully focused on getting the team back in that top four position and a chance for to play some more European football next season. It has been a somewhat of a tough summer transfer window for, however, we're having to deal with the PSR problem. We have seen some local lads like Ellie Anderson going off to the likes of Nottingham Forest. We do get a bit of a boost this season, though, in the fact that we do eventually, at some point, which will be, as was reported last night, the Nottingham Forest game in the Carabao Cup second round, which we got them, of course, at the City Ground. And we'll be taking them on, and that is when we will see the return of Sandro Tonali back to Newcastle United, of course, after his betting ban. So that's a boost for this season. We didn't have Sandy for quite a bit of last season because of that betting ban, but we will have him back, of course, not for this game, not for the second game, but for that game against Nottingham Forest in the Cup, and then from there on throughout the season. Of course, it's a big challenge for Southampton. They've got to stay up in the Premier League, as does Ipswich and Leicester City. We're seeing last season, the three promoted teams to the Premier League ended up going straight back down. And that is because the Premier League has become a much tougher landscape for the teams coming up out of the Championship. It's a big step up from the Championship to the Premier League. There's a lot of teams competing to get up into that European football, and we've seen that with the likes of teams like Aston Villa emerging as contenders for top four places. We've seen it with the likes of Brighton, of course, in previous seasons pushing for it. West Ham pushing for it. It's a lot tougher now. There's a lot more teams competing for them European places, so that makes it harder for these teams coming up out the Championship, the likes of Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton. And if you haven't seen my Premier League predictions, spoiler alert, I did pick Southampton to go straight back down along with Leicester and Ipswich. If you want to see me other thoughts on other teams, go check that out. But this is Russell Martin's first Premier League game as a manager. That's going to be a tough one, of course, for Southampton. I've got a feeling, that it's not going to be a good season for Southampton fans. Sorry to any Southampton fans watching, but I think you're in for a massive, massive long haul. But like they say, football's a funny old game, and it's what happens on the day at the end of it, but I think it's going to be a really good performance by Newcastle on the opening day against Southampton. Newcastle, of course, going into it as well, we are with a strong home record of an unbeaten run in the last 8 league games. It's St James's Park as well, so it's a pretty impressive record, that Southampton's got to go up against. And then, of course, we have been impressive as well against newly promoted teams. Scored at least 4 goals in 2 of those games against newly promoted sides. So it doesn't look well for Southampton when you look at it. It's looking like a very, very hard task for them on their first game back in the Premier League to have to go to St James's Park. It's obvious that it's going to be a cauldron of noise. St James's always is. So that's going to be a worry for their fans and a worry for their team. But this, could be a really good game for us Newcastle United fans. Of course, Southampton's challenges, just looking at what they've got ahead of them, winless in their last 8 visits to St James's Park, a history of playoff winners, struggling in the Premier League as well. The need to prove they can compete at the top level also, with the fact that their manager is only having his first Premier League game as a manager, so that's going to be a tough one. He's going to have to settle himself in early and quick if Southampton want to stay in the Premier League more than one season. And the key players going into this game, obvious key players, on the Newcastle side of things, is Alexander Isak, Bruno, Sandro Tonali obviously can't be available for this one, but Joe Linton, other players as well, like Nicky Pope back in between the sticks. We didn't have him for quite a bit of last season. We're seeing quite a few injuries last season as well, but we're starting off a new slate here. We're starting off a brand new season. We've got a lot of players fit, the likes of Harvey Barnes, so it's going to be a pretty tough test ahead for Southampton fans. Southampton's key players, of course, looking at what they've got, Adam Armstrong, fantastic in there, the championship for them last season, scoring 24 goals. Other players in there as well, like Hodward, Taylor Bellis, who they've just signed. They've signed Berrington Diaz as well, who was in the Premier League as well. So they've had players that have played in the Premier League, so maybe they could give them a little bit of a helping hand throughout this season. But I've always got to go back to, it's going to be a tough ride for Southampton this season. Newcastle, of course, are strong favourites to get the start with a win for the season. Southampton, of course, facing an uphill battle, as I've mentioned, but they could spring a surprise throughout the season. I'm definitely not saying that they're going to spring a surprise at St James's Park. I mean, it's got to be one of the toughest starts to a season to have to come to St James's Park and, be able to try and see if you can upset the boat. But both teams will be eager to set the tone for the rest of the season off the first game, and then you look at what our games are as well. Newcastle's got a really good run of fixtures to start off the Premier League season with. So if we can kick it off with a win against Southampton, then we could see ourselves well within that top 4, top 3 position, by about 5 games into the Premier League. That is my thoughts, going into it. Any Southampton fans watching, let us know what your thoughts are going into this game. Fellow Newcastle fans, of course, let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, score predictions and all that stuff. Let us know down in the comments below, and make sure to hit a like, share and subscribe to the video as well if you have enjoyed it, because it really does help to support the channel. It takes seconds to do, but it massively helps to support the channel and grow the channel and push the channel forward as well. And I'll see you all for the next one. However, lads.